I never expected to see my friend again when he went missing over 20 years ago. But just last week, I got a call from someone who looked exactly like him. The caller ID said it was coming from an unknown number. And when I picked up, a familiar voice said, "Hey, it's me. Do you remember me?" It sounded like him, but I was so shocked I could only respond with, "Who is this?" Then he laughed and said, "Dude, it's me. How could you not recognize my voice?" He continued, "I know it's been a long time, but I need your help." He explained that he needed to meet with me urgently and asked if I could drive out to the old abandoned hospital. My heart sank because I knew what he was referring to. "You shouldn't go there," I said. "Why? What happened there?" The line went silent for a moment before he replied, "I don't have much time. Just trust me, please come to the hospital." I didn't want to go, but his voice sounded desperate. So I agreed to meet him at the abandoned hospital. I drove through the empty parking lot and noticed a black SUV parked beside the building. I walked up to the driver's side window and asked, "Is this seat taken?" The driver rolled down the window and I instantly recognized my childhood friend. But the sight of him brought back too many painful memories. I quickly turned and walked around to the other side, slid into the seat and asked him, "What are you doing here?" He responded, "We need to talk. There's something I have to tell you." As we drove off, he told me that he had been living under a false identity and that he had finally tracked me down. He seemed excited to be reunited with an old friend, but I was still apprehensive about our destination. The old abandoned hospital had been a place of joy and laughter when we were kids. It held many happy memories, but it also had a dark side that neither of us wanted to revisit. When we reached the hospital, the reality of the situation hit me, and I realized why my friend had called me. He was in trouble and he needed my help. He said, "I'm sorry to drag you into this, but I owe you this explanation. I need you to hear me out." I know this will sound crazy, but I swear it's true. He took a deep breath and began his story. It started like any other summer day in 1997. We were 14 years old and looking for fun. We decided to check out the old abandoned hospital that stood at the edge of town. It was a large Victorian-style building with a long history. Back then, it was rumored to be haunted, and we were determined to find out if the stories were true. We spent the entire afternoon exploring the hospital, which was filled with broken beds, old medical equipment, and eerie silence. We found a basement with rusty instruments and a morgue with glass display cases. Even though we were scared, we couldn't help but feel excited by the prospect of discovering something truly spooky. As the sun began to set, we knew we had to leave. But that's when things took a turn. We heard a noise coming from the second floor, and when we investigated, we found a secret door hidden behind a bookshelf. Curiosity got the better of us, and we pushed the door open. On the other side was a dimly lit room with a single wooden desk and chair. On the desk was an old leather-bound book. My friend decided to open it and read aloud, "Beware the curse of the hospital. Those who enter shall never leave." As soon as he finished reading, the lights flickered and went out, plunging us into total darkness. In a panic, we tried to find the door, but we couldn't remember which way we had come in. We were lost. Suddenly, my friend tripped over something and fell. In the struggle to get himself upright, he knocked over the desk lamp. The loud crash echoed through the room and was followed by a loud bang from somewhere in the hospital. We were terrified. Not knowing what to do, we ran in the direction of the noise, hoping to find an exit. We found ourselves in a long corridor lined with doors. Each one we opened led to an empty room until we came across a set of double doors at the end of the hall. We rushed through them and found ourselves outside. We were soaked with sweat and our hearts were pounding in our chests. We never wanted to go back inside that hospital. Over the next few weeks, strange things started happening. My friend began experiencing terrifying nightmares and seeing shadowy figures out of the corner of his eye. He became convinced that the hospital was cursed and that the book had put a hex on him. One night, he woke up in a cold sweat and told me that he had to get away from the town or the curse would consume him. He packed a bag and left without saying goodbye. I didn't think much of it at the time, assuming he'd gone to visit his family out of state. I didn't realize how close we'd become until he disappeared from my life. Now, more than 20 years later, he was sitting in front of me telling me that everything I had assumed about our past was wrong. He said, "It's not a curse, but a ritual." The book contained instructions for a summoning ritual that was meant to bring forth a spirit from the hospital's past. But we did it wrong and accidentally unleashed something evil into the world. I was skeptical, but my friend insisted that what he was saying was true. He said that after leaving town, he changed his name and moved to another state. But the entity he had unleashed followed him and caused all sorts of chaos in his life. He begged me to come back to the hospital with him so he could perform the counter ritual to banish it back to where it came from. I was hesitant to believe him, but something in his voice convinced me that he was serious. I agreed to help him, and we returned to the abandoned hospital. Finding the secret room was easy since my friend still remembered the way. He led me back to the same spot where we had discovered the book all those years ago, and explained that I needed to participate in the ritual if it was going to work. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I trusted my friend and did as he instructed. He handed me a silver locket that I recognized as one of my grandmother's. I had given it to my friend years ago as a joke, not realizing its significance. He explained that the locket was important because it was a conduit to the spiritual realm. I placed it in my hand and closed my eyes as he began to chant. The air grew heavy and the temperature dropped significantly. I felt a cold presence behind me and the hair on the back of my neck stood on end. Suddenly, the silver locket in my hand began to glow brightly and the chanting grew louder. Then everything went black. When I regained consciousness, I found myself lying on the floor of the secret room. I sat up and looked around to see that my friend was nowhere to be found. I called out his name, but there was no response. I began to panic, thinking that whatever he had unleashed had gotten to him. Then I heard a voice behind me say, "Looking for someone?" I turned to face the speaker and saw a figure standing in the doorway. It was my friend, but something was different about him. His eyes glowed an eerie green, and he had a sinister smile on his face. "What have you done with him?" I asked, my voice shaking. He stepped closer and whispered, "He's gone now, but don't worry. You'll join him soon enough." He lunged towards me with a wild look in his eyes. I screamed and ran out of the room. As I ran through the hospital, I could hear him close behind me. I didn't know where I was going, but I had to get away from him. I found the same set of double doors that had led us outside on our first visit and ran through them. Once outside, I kept running until I reached my car. I slid into the driver's seat and sped away from the hospital. Behind me, my friend was nowhere to be seen. To this day, I still don't know what happened to him or whatever it was that he unleashed. But sometimes when I look up in the sky, I wonder if he's watching me from above, waiting for me to join him. I know that if he could see me, he would be smiling that sinister smile of his and saying, "Soon enough."